Hello and welcome back to Everything Tumbler Tutorials. My name is Rebecca Escott, and today you might notice that I decided to revamp my desk. I purchased this beautiful wood grain contact paper from Amazon, and I decided that it inspired me so much I was going to use it on a tumbler, and I matched it up with this beautiful plaid AB Designs vinyl that we're also going to incorporate in this video. And it came in this ginormous roll. Very inexpensive, and again, all of the links will be in the description for you guys below. Surprisingly, this was very easy to work with as well. So I cut this out at about 4 inches wide, and the plaid I cut about 3 inches wide. So the plaid is cut from an overall 12 by 12 pattern vinyl. So typically I go ahead and remove the entire backing from my vinyl sheets. But for tutorial purposes and for beginners, we decided to go ahead and leave it on. So to avoid any gaps in your vinyl, it's important to kind of come up a little bit, even a hair away from that bottom rim. That way you make sure you get a nice seal with your vinyl and the tumbler. So normally when my two ends meet, I take my measuring tape and go ahead and slice down the center and removing that extra vinyl. However, with the design that I'm actually going to go with for this project, I realized I didn't need to. So I just press down firmly and make sure everything is nice and secure and tied up on the tumbler. Once this is nice and secure, it's time to move on to the top. Once again, I'm going to go ahead and leave this backing on just a little bit and go ahead and place it, making it nice and straight, lined up with the little marks that I made on the tumbler before I got started. Now this contact paper was so easy to work with. I had very little trouble, honestly. And when it lined up on the other side, I couldn't even tell where my seam was. Once you have everything nice and secure, now it's time to trim the rim. You want to make sure you have a nice, sharp X-Acto knife when you do this process, and it makes it very, very simple. So once we have the top rim completely trimmed, we're going to go ahead and press down around that rim and make sure everything is nice and snug up against the tumbler. Now, using the backing from each of these two pieces of vinyl, or in this case contact paper, we're going to go ahead and tape off very carefully, leaving about a hair of the contact paper as well as the vinyl showing, just so we can overspray on that and glitter the tumbler. So allowing a little bit of the contact paper and the vinyl to be exposed allows you to have a very sharp, clean line, as well as no gaps in between your glitter and your vinyl, and or in this case contact paper. I'm hoping that that made complete sense. So once you have both ends nice, safe, and protected, we're now going to go ahead and spray, and I'm going to be using a semi-gloss. It takes a lot longer for the semi-gloss spray paints to dry versus flat. Then I'm going to come in with Lagoon from AB Designs once it's spray painted really, really well, and we're going to go ahead and glitter it up. Once I was really satisfied with this first coat of glitter, I was able then to immediately remove the paper backings to expose the vinyl and the contact sheet. Once we've removed the paper, I'm going to allow this to dry for 20 to 30 minutes, and then I'm going to go ahead and seal it with the clear seal from Rust-Oleum. Once that's completely dry, we can then go into our first coat of epoxy. I'm going to be using Fast Set from Counterculture DIY for this very first coat of epoxy. I'm going to allow this to completely dry for about 3 hours before moving on to our next step. I really hope you are enjoying this video, and if so, please hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe to my channel and make sure you click the bell for more tutorials coming soon. And just as a reminder, I have teamed up with AB Designs Co. and I now have merch, so make sure you check out the merch link down below. Just as a reminder, after your initial coats of epoxy, make sure you use your heat torch to pop any bubbles that you may or may not be able to see. Okay, so this is the next step that I was referring to earlier in the video. As you can see, I did a power wash method, and I was very, very careful and light-handed on majority of the tumbler because I really did not want to cover up the vinyl that I had just placed. In that section you see right there, I did go a little bit heavier because that's where our decal is going to go. I tried to get you guys videos outside with the power wash method. It just never works out. But there are tons of power wash videos readily available on YouTube for you guys where you can definitely find one that shows the process indoors and out. Unfortunately, I was unable to really get you a solid video, but this is the aftermath of my power wash. So I do deeply apologize for not being able to get this to you where you can actually see. So once you've done the power wash method, it's important to go in with another thin coat of epoxy. In this way, there are no mistakes when applying your decal, because heaven forbid you have a mistake and you need to pull that decal up. You would not want to pull the paint along with it. So for that, we're going to go ahead and protect this spray paint power wash method with another thin coat of epoxy. In about 3 hours, we're able to move on to the next step. So now you'll see it's time to place the decal. You will also notice that I trimmed right up to the image, but please know this is a personal preference and it is not necessary. I always eyeball my decals into place and I always work from the center out. This helps prevent air pockets and wrinkles when placing my decal. So once your clear cast decal is firmly in place, we're now ready to move on to our glitter heat transfer vinyl. In other words, HTV. I am going to be using my heat gun to continue to place these throughout the tumbler. So these HTVs do not actually stick. So you kind of want to hold it into place, get it heated up a little bit, and I'm going to use the velvet side of my AB Designs squeegee and press firmly. Again, when using the heat gun, you do not want to leave it in one spot for too long. So try to move it around, play with it, see if it's going to lift up. If it is not ready, don't force it. Bring the heat gun back and allow it to completely adhere to the tumbler before removing its transfer sheet. I'm going to speed things up just a little bit until I have all of my decals in place. Once you have all of your decals in place, there is no need to seal. But if you do feel more comfortable, you can use the Quick Coat from Counterculture DIY, which is a urethane sealer, just to make sure everything stays nice and in place before you epoxy. I'm going to go ahead and go right into my coat of epoxy with Counterculture DIY. Thank you so much for watching, and be sure to find us on Facebook at Everything Tumbler Tutorials for continued learning. Remember, all links will be in the description for you below. As with any coats of epoxy, be sure to use your heat torch to pop any bubbles that you may or may not be able to see. Rest in peace, Tommy. We'll always love you.